You know that guilt is a burden, and that burden doesn't disappear. He is not just thinking about the situation, he is carrying the shadow of what he did. If there was sincerity, you wouldn't be here, waiting. He ignores your reactions. He avoids confrontation. He tries to convince himself that everything will be fine, and you, on the other hand, justify. Justify the silence. Justify the waiting. The pattern repeats. He withdraws. You seek explanations. He hesitates. You wonder if it's worth it. The cycle remains, and the truth is simple. Nothing changes because he has yet to decide. The bond between you exists because you nurture it. You hope he changes. But this is not love, it is dependency. And dependency only exists because one side bears the other's weight. He doesn't need to apologize. He just needs to acknowledge what he did. The cost of that act is yours. You allow this inertia. Every passing day you remain available for the same story. You don't need more empty promises. You need action. Reality has already been presented. Pain is an echo that resonates in the walls of what could have been. You feel it, don't you? He diverts and you observe. A game of shadows where the cards are on the table, but he doesn't reveal his hand. Every day expectation turns into frustration. He seeks comfort, and you seek meaning. The harsh truth is that the past weighs. Memories are like anchors that hold you both to the bottom. You remember the promises made in moments of vulnerability. What was sincere now turns into a blur. He doesn't respond to your messages, not because he can't, but because he chooses not to. You try to rationalize the absence, but logic dissolves in the tide of uncertainty. He does what he has always done, ignores. You wonder if this indifference is normal, if you're just being sensitive. But it is just another page of this book, and you keep reading, even when your mind screams to close it. He disguises fear with smiles, while you use hope as a shield. You get lost in attempts to justify the unjustifiable. That unanswered message, that cancelled plan, he just forgot. Or maybe he didn't care. The cycle spins, and you find yourself trapped in a maze where every exit leads back to the entrance. It's exhausting, and yet you don't know how to stop. And his behavior? It repeats. He withdraws, creates emotional barriers, keeps his distance. You then react. The pressure mounts and you find yourself forced to adapt. Accept less than you deserve. Justify the lack. This dance is exhausting, but the truth is, you are more than just exhausted. You are getting lost. The connection you thought was based on love reveals itself to be a thin thread. And that thread, which should be strong, is worn out by the repetition of an unsustainable pattern. You begin to understand that his excuses are nothing more than an echo of what he truly desires, to avoid responsibility. This dependency is not love, and the line between the two becomes increasingly blurred. And when you look into his eyes, what do you see? Fear? Indifference? Or is it just a reflection of your own insecurity? What is real here? You carry the weight of his decisions, while he navigates your life with impunity. This dynamic is a trap that you continue to feed. And then, the doubt arises. Do you believe he can change? Or is it you who needs to change? Resistance to change is your choice. You decide if you will remain available, or if you will finally walk away from this vicious cycle. Over the days, the answers become clear. Reality knocks on your door. Every moment you ignore your own need for respect and reciprocity is a moment in which you betray yourself. The bond is not strong, it is a stretched rope about to break. You don't want to be an unfinished project in his life. There comes a moment when you realize that you are no longer capable of maintaining this facade. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? A person tired of waiting for a future that never comes. The promises, those that once seemed genuine, now sound like an empty echo. The truth is harsh. Every moment that passes without action is a moment you deny yourself. And what happens when you decide to act? When you take the reins of the situation, the price to pay can be uncomfortable. Yes, it can hurt, but it also brings freedom. Freedom to rebuild, to choose to leave behind the weight that does not belong to you. The bond breaks not because there is no love, but because the dependence has become unsustainable. You don't need to be tied to a narrative that doesn't serve you. You are responsible for your own story. There is no magical transformation that will happen on the other side, only the clear choice to review this pattern. You are already aware that this story has an end. Now it is up to you to decide if the end will be worthy or not. Accepting the continuation of this situation is a choice. And how much more time are you willing to spend in this waiting? The cost has already been paid. Now the next steps are yours. The reality has already been presented, and it is time to decide. You are standing in front of the mirror, reflecting not just your image but your choices. That expression of hope no longer shines as before. It is a mask that wears out. The questions echo. What happened to what you really wanted? Where is the version of you that aspired for more, and he so distant, always a step out of reach? You remember the moments when everything felt light, when the conversations flowed and the eyes sparkled. Now, every word is a weight. Every silence is an abyss. It is in this empty space that you begin to realize the real cost of waiting. Time does not heal. It only exposes more layers of disillusionment. Empty promises are like dust that accumulates, obscuring what could be a genuine connection. In fact, you're not just wasting time, you're losing yourself. As you observe this vicious cycle, something changes within you. A restlessness emerges. It whispers that there is no more time to wait for someone else to change. The change needs to come from you, and that is scary. What does it really mean to change? What if change brings pain? You ask yourself, what stops me from acting? Fear of the unknown, fear of being alone. But the loneliness you feel now is much greater than any potential isolation. It is a shared loneliness, surrounded by someone who should be present but chooses to keep a distance. The mind sings a familiar song. He can get better, he can change. And you want to believe. But time and facts tell a different story. He continues to avoid confrontations while you become more transparent, more visible in your vulnerability, but less recognized in your value. In this game of shadows, you are becoming a stranger in your own life. What made sense before now seems like an endless rehearsal. The real question that forms is, do you still recognize yourself? You try to remember who you were before all of this. What were your passions, your dreams? Do they still exist, or have they dissipated amid the fog of his excuses? The disconnection is palpable. Each day seems like a warning, a reminder that life does not wait. The initial fear of change begins to turn into frustration. You realize that what you fear most is remaining as you are. What scares you most is continuing to live a life that does not reflect who you truly are. This life is built on promises that were never fulfilled. And then a flash of courage emerges. It's not the definitive solution, but it's a first step. The recognition that you have the power to decide what happens next. This is not just an act of defense, it is an affirmation of your own existence. You take a deep breath. You feel the weight on your shoulders, but also the energy pulsing within. Yes, it is uncomfortable. The idea of breaking away from what is familiar causes anxiety. But this anxiety is less than the weariness of waiting for someone who will not come. The days pass. Each one carries a new opportunity. You start to distance yourself emotionally, not out of indifference, but out of respect. Respect for yourself and for your story. That thin thread that united the two of you is coming undone. Conversations become rarer, messages sporadic, and instead of feeling sadness, you finally feel relief. It is not an act of revenge, but an act of self-love. You decide to stop sustaining the narrative that no longer serves. The echoes of the past become silences, and when he tries to approach again, seeking attention, you realize that you no longer feel obliged to respond. The dependency that once seemed necessary became a burden. In this new space, you begin to rediscover parts of yourself. Your passions resonate again. Every abandoned hobby gains new life, and gradually, the hope that seemed lost transforms into confidence. It is a painful but necessary learning process. Love should not be a burden. It should be light, it should be mutual growth, and you must refuse to accept less than you deserve. Then a new understanding emerges. You don't need his validation. The freedom you seek is not tied to his change. It is rooted in your decision not to accept the current situation. You make peace with your story and free yourself from the chains that the past imposed. Thus, when you look into the eyes of your reflection, you see more than a shadow of what once was. You see strength. You see a new version of yourself, ready to move forward. This reality has already been presented, and now you are the author of your own story. You realize that life does not wait. The moment you decided to look at yourself was liberating. Now, every step you take seems firmer. The routine changes. The small things start to take on new dimensions. You rediscover the pleasure in drinking coffee alone, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the light breeze. These sensations, once ignored, now shine brightly. The contrast is visceral. Where there was anxiety, there is now a curious serenity. Instead of losing yourself in thoughts about him, you find yourself reflecting on who you are. Your laughter sounds more free. Your smiles are genuine. You begin to remember dreams that were buried under the weight of dependency. An unfinished book, a dream trip, forgotten skills. Each memory is a spark that reignites your essence. You understand that transformation does not need to be dramatic. Sometimes it is a whisper, a walk outdoors that turns into a ritual. Flowers bloom every spring, and you want to bloom too. You start writing daily, no longer as a way to vent, but as a tool for self-discovery. The words flow with the certainty that they have validity. You put them on paper instead of keeping them inside. Each sentence is a step in the direction of yourself. In this new scenario, your interactions with him change. Sporadic messages still come in, but you don't feel the need to respond immediately. He seeks answers, but now you are the one with the questions. What do you really want? What fits into this new space you are creating? The truth is that the connection was already fragile, and now it drags on like a distant echo. Each attempt he makes to reconnect feels like a balloon deflating. He tries to revive old jokes, memories, but all of it sounds like an echo of a past you are determined to leave behind. What once elicited emotion now is just a reminder that things were not enough. There was fun, but there was a lack of depth. You wonder if he can see this change in you, or if he is so absorbed in his own narrative that he doesn't notice what is happening around him. When he mentions old memories, you feel the need to react, but you realize there is no longer an impulse for you to go back. Indifference becomes a shelter, and when he suggests a meeting, the idea that once sparked a whirlwind of emotions now brings an unsettling calm. You accept the invitation, but the expectation is different. There is no longing, only curiosity. On the scheduled day, you get ready, but not to please him. You wear something that represents who you are now, a reflection of the new strength that no longer hides. When you see him, there is a sense of estrangement. He looks the same, but you don't. The exchanged glances no longer carry the same weight. You observe, analyze, understand. He talks, but his words vibrate on a frequency that no longer resonates. They are recycled promises, ideas you have already discarded. Amid smiles and superficial conversations, something becomes clear. The absence of connection that once went unnoticed is now palpable. The reality is harsh, and they no longer have anything to offer each other. You feel certain that you are where you should be. And while he tries to pull you back, your roots deepen in the ground you have reconstructed. Each attempt to grasp you is a reminder of how much you have grown. After the meeting, the silence is profound. There is no anguish over what might have been. On the contrary, there is a sense of relief. You no longer need his recognition. You no longer need his validation. Your world is expanding beyond the limits it imposed. You discover new friendships, new experiences. Life begins to pulse again. The days become brighter. You start making plans without thinking of him. The music plays more intensely. The smells are more vivid. Conversations expand. Dialogues float between new discoveries and genuine laughter. People around you notice the change. They ask what happened. You smile, knowing the answer is not in words, but in the silent transformation that occurred. The self-love you cultivated now flourishes in relation to others. You realize that connections can be light, without the need for accumulated weight. You start building relationships based on respect and reciprocity. The energy you once directed towards justifying someone's absence is now invested in creating new bonds. And then one day, while revisiting your letters, you find an old one. It was a reflection on what you expected from love. The words seem from another life. You read and laugh at the innocence. What you yearned for wasn't love, but someone to complete you. Now you know that you are already complete. This discovery is vital. And finally, you can conclude a chapter. The decision is yours, and the freedom is finally tangible. Your story has already been written. Now, you are the author of the interaction you choose to allow in your life. And the freedom you found reflects not just your choice, but the power that resides in recognizing your own essence. Each day is a new chapter, and you are ready to write them with courage. This reality has already been presented. And now, The true story begins.